I didn't know if it was recording it. So I want to show you a fun math activity that involves some fraction thinking. There are a few supplies that you need, so I would recommend listening to the supplies and then pausing the video to go collect what you need and then starting it again once you're ready. So you will need a few pieces of paper. It doesn't matter what color. I used 1, 2, 3 pieces of paper, but you might need more or less depending on the size of circles that you make. You will also need some glue or some tape. It could be glue stick or Elmer's glue like this, doesn't matter. You'll need a pen or a pencil. You'll need some scissors. You'll probably want something to color with. Anything is fine. And then we're going to be making circles. So you will need something to trace a circle with. My husband luckily just got a package that had a circle shape to it. So I'm using the lid from that to trace circles with, but you could use the lid of a yogurt container or a toilet paper tube. Anything that's circle shaped is fine. This one's pretty big, but I'm going to go for it anyways. But if yours is smaller, that's just great. Okay, so pause the video now, grab some paper, pencil, glue, scissors, circle shape, something to color with, and come back when you're ready. Okay, so the first step is that you are going to take your circle tracer and make at least 3 circles. You can make at least 3. If you want to challenge yourself a little bit when it comes to the fraction part, you can make 4. 3 was good for me. Okay, so there's 2. 3. Go ahead and pause the video and trace your 3 circles and then come back when you're ready. Okay, so next we are going to cut out the circles. I already cut out 2 of mine while you were tracing yours. So now I'm going to cut out my last one. And it doesn't need to be perfect, but I'm going to go as much along the lines as I can. I really love finding art projects that have math concepts as a part of them. I just think that math and art are not things that usually people think about putting together, but there really is so much math in art, and so it's neat to do projects that have a math focus. Okay, so now I have 3 circles. Go ahead and pause the video, and once your 3 circles are cut out, then restart it. Okay, next I'm going to take my first circle and I'm going to fold it in half, and here's where some of the fractions start coming in. So now I have 2 equal parts to my circle, 1/2 and 1/2, and I'm just going to cut that circle down the middle, and then I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to label each part. So it'll be upside down when I write it, but then I'll turn it around so you can see it. So this is 1 out of the 2 equal parts, which means it's 1/2, and this is 1 out of the 2 equal parts, which means that it's another 1/2. All right, now I'm going to take my second circle, fold it in half. Then I'm going to fold it in half again so that when I unfold it, I have 4 equal parts to my circle. So now I'm going to cut along the fold lines that I made. And then just like with the first circle, I'm going to label the fraction for each part. Okay, so since there were 4 equal parts to this circle, then 1 of each of those parts would be 1 out of the 4 equal parts, which we call 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and label each of them as 1/4. Okay, why don't you go ahead and pause the video and then restart when you're done with those steps. Okay, next I'm going to take my last circle and fold it in half, and then fold it in half again, And then I bet you can guess what's coming next. I'm going to fold it in half again. And then I will unfold it. So now this circle has 8 parts. So I'm going to cut along each of the fold lines. Okay, and then there were 8 equal parts. So each of these slices is 1/8. So go ahead and label each of those with 1/8. Follow those steps and then restart the video when you're ready. Okay, if you want to add an extra challenge, then you can do another circle of the same size and fold it in half again, and then you'll have 16ths. But I'm just going to stick with halves, fourths, and eighths. Okay, the next step is that we're going to take another piece of paper and we're going to use these slices to just create some kind of a design on your paper. You can color these and arrange them any way you want. Like maybe I'm going to make, whoops, I want to make sure the fraction side is showing. Maybe I'm going to make a sun. That's probably pretty hard to see through the camera, but I'll show you a colored vision in a moment. Maybe I'm going to make a sun. Maybe I'm going to make a tropical fish. You can kind of go crazy and be creative and choose what you want to do. I'm going to show you my finished one after I colored in all of the pieces and then I arranged them and I glued them down the way I wanted them to be. And that one looks like this. So you can see I tried to make a bird that's sitting on a flower, and then there's another tropical flower over here, and then the sunshine is above it. So you don't need to make a bird, you can make whatever you want. I think it's neat just to color the pieces and then arrange them in a cool design and then glue them down on the paper. I did some of my gluing so that some of the fraction labels were covered up, and that's okay if that needs to happen. Okay, the very last step is when you label the fractions for each part of your artwork. So I'm going to have to do this upside down, but then I'll flip around and show you at the end. I'm just going to take a little chunk of empty space. You could also do this on a separate piece of paper. And for each part of my picture, I'm going to just label what fractions are a part of that piece of the paper. So the sun is the first thing. That's pretty easy because it's just 1/2. But then I'm going to do the flower. After that, I'll call that flower 1. And that is actually 1/4 and 1/4, which is 2/4, right? So I'm going to label that as 2/4. I'll show you what I'm doing here. Okay, then I have my flower 2. This one's a little trickier because there are different fractions in it. There's an 1/8, and there's an 1/8, and there's also a 1/4. So I could write this 2 different ways, depending on how much of a challenge I'm ready for. First, I'm going to write flower 2. I had 2 different 1/8 sections, so I know that makes 2/8. So I could write it as 2/8 plus 1/4. Or if I'm thinking of what I know about equivalent fractions, I know that if I put 2/8 together, that's the same as 1/4. So really I have 1/4 and 1/4 here, which is the same as 2/4, which if you want to get really crazy is the same as 1/2. So I could keep it the way I had it over here, or I could draw another equal sign and write 1/2, because I know that when I put all of those fractions together, what I'll get is 1/2. Okay, the last one is the trickiest. I saved the hardest for last, and that's my bird here. So first I'm going to count, actually first I'll write bird. First I'm just going to count up how many eighths I have. So I have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, and then you can barely see it, but there's another leg here that makes 6/8. Okay, so that's 6/8 plus, then I'm going to count up the quarters that I have. I just have 1/4 plus I have 1/2 as the body of the bird. So I could leave it like that. That's just fine. I'm going to push myself a little bit and see if I can figure out what some equivalent fractions would be here. I know I have 1/8 and 1/8 here. And I remember from down here that when I put 2/8 together, that gives me 1/4. Then I have another 2/8 here. So that's 1/4 and 1/4, which I know if I put 2/4 together, then that gives me the same thing as a half. So really all this is the same as a half. Oh my gosh, we're getting crazy. Okay, then if I put that half together with this half, that's the same as 1/2. Then I have my 1/4 here. So that's 1/2 and 1/4. And then if I combine this 8 with this 8 and put that together with this 1/4, that makes a half. So that means that altogether in my bird, I have a total of 1/2 and 1/2 of a circle. So I'm going to write another equal sign and write the number 1 and then a 1/2 afterwards to show that that bird was made out of one entire circle and then an additional half of a circle if I put all the pieces together. Okay, so remember again, you don't need to do all of that adding of fractions and thinking about equivalent fractions, but it's kind of fun if you want to give it a try. But if you want to just leave it with the equation where you're adding the different fractions together, then that's totally fine too. Okay, so have lots of fun with your fraction art. Please send me a picture. I made a fraction art submission in the Submit Your Work Here folder. It is not required. You don't have to send me a picture, but I would love it if you do this, if you do send me a picture, because I really want to see what you made. Okay, thank you so much. Have fun. See you later.